I'm Noel Latif, president of the Foreign Policy Association, and I'm delighted that the Foreign Policy Association has joined with the Canadian Association of New York to welcome Premier Brian Gallant of New Brunswick to New York. The architect of our joint venture today is the outstanding Consul General of Canada in New York, John Prado. I'd like to invite John at this time to formally introduce the Premier. John?
Good afternoon. I was going to say good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, but I'm going to say good afternoon, friends, because after 4 years of being Canada's Consul General in the greatest city in the world, New York, and what an experience it's been, I feel that I've done so many things with the FPA and so many things with people in this room that to address you as good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, I think would be rather impolite for a Canadian. So I'm going to say good afternoon, friends. I want to start first by telling you what a great honor it has been to partner with the Foreign Policy Association over the course of the last 4 years. We've developed such a great relationship. We work so well together. And I view the FPA as the premier foreign domestic think tank in America. And your leadership, Noel, has been an incredible leadership where you've broadened the base and you've allowed FPA to come in the homes of all Americans, including what you do at high schools and bringing the importance of foreign affairs and relations and diplomacy into high schools. I think that is an incredible feat, and I want to thank everything that the FPA does, including the fact that my first lunch, official lunch as Canada's Consul General, was with Noel Latif. So as I come to the end of my term, I'm reminiscing at how great the relationship has been. So thank you very much, Noel. I also want to thank another organization that does an incredible job, and I don't know how they do it, but the Canadian Association of New York does an incredible job bringing together Canadians and fans of Canada together. And the reason why I think they do such an incredible job is all these people have such important day jobs, and this is their volunteer effort, right? So I don't know how they do it, but they do an incredible job. So to everybody in CANI, Canadian Association of New York, thank you so much for what you do for Canada and for Americans that admire Canada here in New York City. And I also state that on October 17th, they'll be doing the Terry Fox Run, which I've seen grow and grow. So if you're interested in an incredible run to raise money for institutions here in New York, including Sloan Kettering, please go to the website. It's canadanyc.com. The Terry Fox Run is at Central Park. My name is John Prado, and it has been an absolute honor to represent my country in the greatest city in the world. And when I look back and I think of all the great things, it's events such as this and bringing Canada's premiers and cabinet ministers to New York. And today, I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to introduce to you our featured guest speaker, the Honorable Brian Gallant, the Premier of the province of New Brunswick.
Je suis très ravi d'être parmi vous aujourd'hui pour vous présenter un leader incroyable avec une vision pour sa province et aussi pour le Canada.
The Premier's presence here in New York is really a reflection of this incredible relationship that we call the Canada-U.S. relationship. If the role of the state is to provide security and prosperity to its people, no two countries in the history of the world have done it as well as Canada and the U.S. I spent the last 3 days in Washington, and I had meetings with various senators, including the great esteemed senator from this state, Senator Schumer, and there was all this talk about this incredible relationship, but how we can do even more for the prosperity of our two people. So today, we're going to hear about it from a province that its biggest exports is to the U.S., and also its biggest imports are from the U.S. Now, this is a unique province because there are communities in New Brunswick where daily life means being in the United States and vice versa. In fact, I remember a story some time ago that if you had to go to someone's house, well,
the house was in New Brunswick, but his driveway was in Maine, right? So this is the daily life. And if you go to the beautiful community of St. Stephen's, which is the biggest employer there, is a great chocolate manufacturer, Gallant chocolate. I mean, that town lives next to Calais. It's separated by a river. But they live each other's lives daily. That's what makes our country so great, right? You think about all the problems in the world you see today, right? Syria, Libya, Ukraine, and then you look at Canada and the US, and we wrote the book on how two sovereign, proudly independent nations can live side by side, creating prosperity and security for each other. We think about it, we're the largest trading nation in the world. Our trading relationship's the largest trading relationship in the world. $759 billion, $2 billion every single day. US dollars, right? 9 million people in the US have a job because of trade with Canada. You know, Canada buys more goods from the United States than the UK, Japan, and China combined. In fact, Canada buys more goods from the United States than the 28 countries of the EC. 35 million plus people buy more goods than 500 million people in Europe. And the reason why I mention that is because you're going to see that relationship with New Brunswick as well. And today, New Brunswick has so many opportunities that the Premier will highlight. Think about on the energy side, and it's an evolving energy sector. 30% of the province's power comes from renewable sources, largely hydro and wind. And they have a commitment to increase it to 40% in the next 5 years. Its oil and gas industry goes back to the 1850s. And there is potential in the province, given that there's 78 trillion cubic feet estimated to be found in the Frederick Brook Shale Formation. There's opportunities for business, trade, and investment. And that's why we're so fortunate today to have a leader with a vision, right? And not only is he the Premier, but he assumed title of Chair of the New Brunswick Jobs Board and the minister responsible for innovation. He is a lawyer, he is a businessman, a former law firm partner. He ran a small business before entering politics. Please give him a warm New York welcome to the Premier of New Brunswick, the Honorable Brian Gallant.
"33 years old, if you're wondering. How humbling is it for a guy from rural New Brunswick on the east coast of Canada to be here in front of all of you speaking about our province and what's happening? I want to thank you very much for your time today. It really is appreciated. I very much also appreciate the support and all the help that Mr. Prado has put into us coming here to meet with all of you and many others, so please give him a round of applause. The only thing is, next time that I speak at the same event as him, I'm going to actually want to go before him because he's quite the speaker. I also want to thank Mr. Latif. Very much appreciated that you open up your doors to us here today, and we look forward to working with all of you moving forward. So please, a round of applause for Mr. Latif. So I want to talk to you about our priorities in New Brunswick. I want to talk to you about what we're doing to try to reach those priorities and overcome some of the challenges that we have. And of course, I want to talk to you about how awesome New Brunswick is. I'm a little biased, of course, but I think once I go through the list of some of the exciting things that are happening, you'll want to look at New Brunswick as well. First, let me just tell you, though, that it is very, very humbling for me to be here, and I'm always humbled in this job. I've been doing it for just a little over a year now. I have to tell you, a few weeks into the job, I had the most humbling experience that I've had probably my whole life. So we are a part with our friends from Quebec, a part of this thing called La Francophonie Internationale, and this is all of these countries, and in our case, is provinces that are francophone, or in our case, bilingual. We are part of an organization internationally. And why it's so humbling and why it's so incredible is that I get to go to a meeting with Prime Minister Harper. We get to go with the President of France, the Prime Minister of Egypt, a bunch of heads of states from across the world. So as you can imagine, just a few weeks into the job, it was pretty humbling to be around all these people. Now, I want to tell you a quick story, and I just have to go back to my childhood, so please, I digress for a second, so I ask you to indulge me. When I was young, my father and my mother worked typical jobs. They worked at fast food restaurants, they worked at convenience stores, they worked at grocery stores. So my father, when I was really young, drove a Chevette. You guys know what a Chevette is? All right. There's a brown Chevette on top of that, by the way. If you already have a Chevette, why do you have to make it brown? I don't know, but it was. So one day we were at the mall, and I asked my father as we were leaving the car, I said, should I lock the doors? He said, no, don't worry about it. I said, well, we have some change in the car, we have some stuff, should we not lock the door? He said, no, don't worry. I said, well, gee, I think we should. He said, well, look around the parking lot, how many cars do you see? I said, well, I see a lot. Well, guess what? Once they go through, if somebody's going through cars to steal change and stuff in the car, once they go through all the nice cars, well, we're going to be safe, we're going to be back in our car, we're going to drive home, and we're going to be all right and have all of our change. So I said, okay, well, I guess that makes sense to me. So fast forward when I'm at one of the summits in Dakar for all these heads of state of countries and provinces and states that have Francophone roots. So at one point we're at one of the shows, and all of us are in the back of the stage watching the show, all the heads of state. And then you had a crowd kind of on the other side. It was a wonderful show. It was all great, fantastic. But I don't think they thought through how we were all going to leave that room. So when it was done, all of us, from the crowd to the heads of state, we're all mixed together, trying to leave the room. And now you have the president of France here, I mean, the prime minister of Egypt, the prime minister of Canada, and many other very important people all mixed in with the crowd. So people are just losing it, right? We had all the security detail. They're all kind of buzzing around trying to find their head of state. And I had one as well, and they came up to me all nervous. They said, are you okay? Are you okay? I said, gee, this is so bad. I mean, everybody's all mixed together. It's so dangerous. And he's like, well, we got to get you out of here. And I said, I quickly told the story about the Chevette in the mall. And I said, guess what? Guess who's the Chevette in this story? So by the time somebody comes up with an idea of doing something, anything that would be bad, we're going to be out of here in the car, back at the hotel, and I'm going to be fine. So that was one of the more humbling experiences of my life. But of course, I get to, day after day, live my dream. And what my dream is pretty simple, is wake up and try to make New Brunswick and try to make the community that I love that much better and try to improve the quality of life of New Brunswickers. So to do that, I want to talk to you a little bit about what our priorities are. So we're focused on creating economic growth and jobs. That is the number one priority of our government. Now I want to explain just quickly why it's a priority. Well, number one is because if we are going to ensure that we have opportunity for people in our province, well, we need jobs. If we're going to ensure that we're able to sustain important social programs, we need economic growth, providing revenue for the province to be able to invest in education, healthcare, and many other things. And of course, if we want to improve the lives for many New Brunswickers, well, we want to ensure we have opportunity and strong social programs. And again, the best way to go through that is making sure that we have growth. And it's also on a personal note, like I said, I have a typical family background. My parents sometimes lost their jobs. They had to move around the province as they looked for work. So I know what it's like for a family. I know what it's like for individuals that want opportunity. So we're going to be focused on jobs. And that's why I wanted to come talk to you today. Now, I want to talk to you a little bit about our province. One of the focuses that we have is certainly, as John said, exports. We are, in Canada, relatively speaking, we are the most export-driven province in the country. So exports are incredibly important in New Brunswick. You're very important in New Brunswick as well. As was mentioned, over 90% of our exports go to the U.S. I think we need to diversify that, not necessarily saying that we don't continue to grow our exports to the U.S., but we need to see some opportunities like CETA and the TPP to ensure that we do have a diversification and we do have new markets. But with that said, we want to ensure that we have a strong partnership, as we already do, and we want to build on that partnership with you, and that's, again, one of the reasons why we're here today. For those of you who don't know where New Brunswick is, I should probably just quickly tell you that. We are right next to you. We are right next to New England, and we're sharing a border with Quebec. I keep pointing here because I have one of our colleagues with us as well at the head table, which is fantastic. And we also are, I think, the gateway for the European Union. And we're the gateway for the European Union to come in to North America as well. So we have a huge, in my opinion, geographical advantage over many jurisdictions. And that has contributed immensely to our potential of ensuring that we have strong exports. Now I want to talk to what we export. So most of you would probably think of the East Coast, if you know it a little bit. If you know New Brunswick, you'll think of seafood, agriculture, and wood. Well, you're absolutely right to think of that. Those are very important exports for our province. In fact, those are the traditional industries, and we want to ensure that we maintain them and grow them. And again, with TPP and CETA, we believe that there are immense opportunities for us to be able to do that. We're hoping to see a rebound and continue to see rebounds in the U.S. economy, hoping the housing market will go well, because that certainly is great for New Brunswick and great for our exports. But we also do a lot of things that people don't recognize. We actually, in the country, New Brunswick, relatively speaking, has the most important back office and financial services industry. It accounts for 10% of our exports. On top of that, we have a very important mining industry. And we have 3 incredible projects that are on the horizon: Trevally Mine, Sisson Mine, which is a new tungsten production, and potash development that is happening in New Brunswick. On top of that, as was mentioned, energy is incredibly important to New Brunswick. We export a lot of our energy products, and we're looking to continue to grow that. Une des choses que nous avons vues dernièrement, c'est d'avoir une stratégie canadienne sur l'énergie. So we have a Canadian energy strategy that was developed by all the premiers from coast to coast to coast in Canada just a few months ago. I was lucky enough to be one of the co-leads of that project, and I can tell you that it's going to help us immensely as a country ensure that we have proper dialogue, that we have guiding principles to make sure we're developing our energy projects in a responsible way and in a timely fashion as well. So we were very happy to see that finally approved by the premiers of our country, and it took, just so you know, about 8 years for that to be finalized. Now this sets the stage for New Brunswick. And specifically, St. John, New Brunswick has much to offer when it comes to the energy sector. St. John is the energy hub, I would argue, of Atlantic Canada, the country, and soon North America. So I wanted to paint you a little bit of a picture of what's happening in St. John. We have the largest, most sophisticated oil refinery in the country in St. John, New Brunswick. We have a LNG terminal that is set for import at the moment. Oh, on top of that, we have a nuclear power plant. We also have some hydro, not too far from St. John. And we have a port in the Port of St. John that is a deep water, year-round, ice-free port. So we have the makings of ensuring that we can be a world-class partner when it comes to energy, and we have the ability to work with you to ensure that we're going to be able to grow our energy exports across the globe. Now this is important to us because we have many projects on the go. So you may have heard of the Energy East pipeline. This is a pipeline that would see oil coming from Alberta, making its way to New Brunswick, to the most sophisticated oil refinery in the country in St. John, New Brunswick. This is important not only for New Brunswick, it's going to help us create jobs, it's going to help us grow an industry that's important to us, but it's important to the country as well. Alberta is the largest oil producer in the world that is landlocked. So it's important for it to be able to move its product. It's important for it to be able to access new markets. It's important for it to be able to diversify. And that's exactly what New Brunswick can help Alberta and the rest of the country do. On top of that, we have the potential of converting our LNG terminal to an export facility. We have great partners, and we have a lot of excitement in the city and in the province about this project. And I say that because, as you can imagine, with the LNG terminal, a nuclear power plant, a refinery, all in one community, there's a social license that has been built up over decades. And this is a city and a province that are incredibly excited about the prospects of growing the energy sector in our province. Now, one of the things that we need for the LNG terminal, we need to ensure that we can have a bit more supply, and we're going to be working with New England states to ensure that we're able to increase the infrastructure capacity. Not only could this help us ensure that we have an LNG terminal for export, but it can also help us with our prices that sometimes during peak season can go a little too high for our liking. Now, on top of that, with CETA, we have the European Union that is incredibly interested in what we can provide to them in terms of energy projects. They came, we invited the ambassadors of the European Union to come join us in St. John, New Brunswick, and I'm quoting the head Ambassador Konix, Her Excellency, when she was asked about what she saw in St. John, New Brunswick, and she said, paraphrasing a bit, St. John has everything that the world wants. And they're very excited because they want to diversify their energy sources, their energy products. They want to be able to weave off of their supply and their linkage to Russia. So we obviously are prime real estate. We have incredible infrastructure to be able to help them do that. We also are going to ensure moving forward that we look into new markets in the knowledge economy. And that's why a big part, as was mentioned, is innovation. I created what's called the Minister Responsible for Innovation, and I took on the portfolio myself. And I want to talk to you a little bit about what's happening. 2 of the largest venture capital deals in the country, in Canada, in the ICT sector, were done in New Brunswick. We have a fiber center that has just been built in New Brunswick. So you may know the same people behind it. Allied Fiber, a guy named Hunter Newby, has built a wonderful fiber center in Moncton, New Brunswick, which is going to make us the most connected jurisdiction. We are going to become the hub for connectivity for North America and the European Union. And on top of that, we have world-class players, BMM, that are headquartered in Las Vegas, originally started in Australia, have taken notice, they've invested, and they're going to be creating 1,000 jobs in Greater Moncton because of all the incredible innovation that's happening in our province. Now we're doing a bunch of other things to ensure our priority of creating jobs and economic growth is going to be realized. We're ensuring we're helping small businesses. We're going to have, by the end of our mandate, the lowest small business tax east of Manitoba. We're going to invest strategically in our infrastructure. And one of the criteria for us to invest in our infrastructure, to stimulate the economy in the short term, to create jobs and make sure we have prosperity in the long term, is to ensure that when we invest, we're going to become more competitive. And of course, that's going to be more competitive not only for production, but of course, for exports as well. We're going to ensure that we have a skilled workforce. We already have one, but we're going to invest even more, making sure post-secondary education is accessible and affordable. And we are going to be the government, I have committed to it, we are going to be the government in our province that has invested the most in education in the history of our beautiful province. So we have a lot on the go, and we have a lot of priorities, and of course, a lot of things that we're going to focus on to have economic growth. But we have a good base to start off with. We have some incredible New Brunswickers that are doing incredible things. Il y a bien des choses que nous sommes très fiers comme province, et des choses donc, je pense, malheureusement, que nous disons pas souvent assez. So I think that unfortunately there's a lot of good things that are happening in New Brunswick that we're sometimes too humble to talk about, so I'm not going to be so humble, and I'm going to tell you them now. Again, we have the largest, most sophisticated oil refinery in the country, but at the same time, we have more startups in 2014 than Alberta did. New Brunswick has been ranked the most cost-competitive jurisdiction to do business, not in Atlantic Canada, not in Canada, but in all of North America. Moncton, New Brunswick has been ranked the most competitive city to do business in the country, in Canada. We have St. John, New Brunswick as the best place to do business in Canada, twice ranked. And we have Fredericton, New Brunswick, that has been ranked twice into the list of the 7 most intelligent communities in the world. On top of that, we have a bilingual workforce. The Canadian Board of Commerce has said that Moncton and St. John are going to be 2 of the cities in its weight class that are going to have the most growth over the next year in the country. On top of that, we have the most artistic town in Buktush, New Brunswick. We have the self-proclaimed Shediac, with Shediac being self-proclaimed lobster capital of the world. We have also the best salmon fishing in the world on the Miramichi and the Restigouche rivers. Nous avons des institutions incroyables comme l'Université de Moncton. We have in UNB ranked the most entrepreneurial university in the country, and it's important to note why, because it's doing a fantastic job of taking all of its research and commercializing it. And it's doing a fantastic job of supporting startups. And on top of that, we have a small but mighty university in St. Thomas University that finds itself actually with a partnership with Harvard, making sure that their business schools are working together. And we have Mount Allison, which has been ranked by Maclean's magazine, which is the most prestigious ranking in Canada. It's a magazine that goes in-depth and looks at every university, and Mount Allison has been ranked by Maclean's magazine as the best university in Canada 18 times. Not one other university even comes close to having as much recognition as Mount Allison has had over the last few years. On top of that, We invented the snowblower in Dalhousie and the chocolate bar in St. Stephen. You're welcome. Yes, absolutely. We have a lot to be proud of in New Brunswick, but like many jurisdictions, we have a lot of challenges as well. But we have fantastic people, we have a good base, and we have the right set of priorities and focus to ensure that we're going to have economic growth, we're going to create jobs, and make New Brunswick the best place to live, work, and play. Now, to accomplish this, we obviously need strong partnerships, and that's one of the reasons why we're here. And I know that all of you have come out, you're all very busy, and I do appreciate your time, but you came out because you have an interest and you want to see what's happening on the East Coast and what's happening in New Brunswick, and if there's a way for you to help us and if there's a way for us to help you. Well, we want to work with you. We're open for business. We're looking for partnership. We're looking to invest. We're looking for economic growth, and we're looking to be a good partner with all of you, with the U.S., and of course with all North America. We have a lot of challenges, but every single one of those challenges, when you flip them on its head, it's an opportunity. So I'm very excited to be working with all of you moving forward. I thank you for your time. I thank you for the invitation. Anything that we can ever do, you just got to let us know. Merci beaucoup. Thank you very much.